The provocation: unsettling the status quo. Look closely at the word itself, addiction. What image does it conjure? Perhaps a shadowy figure, a needle, a bottle, a frantic search for the next fix. We've been conditioned to see it as a moral failing, a lack of willpower, a destructive choice made by weak individuals. Society, media, and even our own internalized judgments reinforce this narrative. The prevailing wisdom whispers of personal responsibility, of a fundamental flaw within the addict that drives their insatiable craving. We label, we ostracize, we condemn, often with a subtle sense of superiority, believing that if only they tried harder, if only they had more self-control, this relentless cycle could be broken. But what if this entire framework, this bedrock of our understanding, is not just incomplete, but fundamentally flawed? What if our focus on the substance, the behavior, the individual's choice blinds us to a deeper, more unsettling truth? Consider the paradox. We live in an era of unprecedented comfort, technological advancement, and access to knowledge. Yet the grip of addiction, in its myriad forms, tightens around more lives than ever before. It's not just illicit drugs, it's shopping, gambling, endless scrolling, workaholism, even seemingly benign pursuits turned compulsive. If addiction were merely a failure of will, why does it cut across every demographic, every socio-economic stratum, touching the lives of brilliant minds and ordinary people alike? Why do we see it persist, even when the consequences are devastatingly clear? Ruined relationships, lost careers, shattered health? The discomfort of this paradox forces a question. What if addiction isn't the primary problem, but rather a symptom? What if the relentless pursuit of an external source of solace, be it a chemical, a sensation, or an activity, is merely a desperate attempt to fill an internal void, to soothe an unaddressed wound? This perspective challenges the very foundation of how we treat, judge, and understand not just addiction, but perhaps even ourselves. It demands that we look beyond the obvious, beyond the surface behavior, and confront a more uncomfortable reality about the human condition. What if the roots of all addiction lie not in a criminal act or a moral weakness, but in a profound, pervasive, and often invisible human experience? The answer, as we shall explore, is far more empathetic and far more revolutionary than conventional wisdom dares to imagine. The hidden dynamics beneath the surface. To truly grasp the nature of addiction, we must journey beyond the substance itself and delve into the human psyche, examining the landscape of early life and the profound impact of unmet needs. As Dr. Gabor Maté so eloquently posits, the question isn't why the addiction, but why the pain? Every addictive behavior, he argues, is a desperate, often unconscious attempt to self-soothe, to escape discomfort, or to fill an emotional vacuum. This isn't about weakness, it's about suffering that has found a distorted form of relief. The roots of this suffering invariably trace back to childhood experiences, not necessarily to overt abuse, but often to subtle, yet persistent, patterns of disconnection, emotional unavailability, or chronic stress. Imagine a child, exquisitely sensitive and entirely dependent on their environment for validation and safety. If their emotional needs, for unconditional love, for attuned presence, for feeling seen and heard, are consistently or even intermittently unmet, a deep wound forms. This isn't about blaming parents, who often did the best they could with what they had, often carrying their own unresolved traumas. It's about recognizing that a child's brain, especially during its formative years, is hardwired to seek connection and to interpret any perceived threat to that connection as a direct threat to survival. When this primary need is compromised, the child adapts. They might suppress their authentic feelings, become overly compliant, or develop a false self to gain approval. This adaptive coping mechanism, while essential for survival in childhood, becomes a blueprint for later self-abandonment. The consequence is a profound sense of inner emptiness, a gnawing unease, or an overwhelming anxiety that persists into adulthood. This is the fertile ground for addiction. The substance or behavior then enters the scene not as a malevolent force, but as a readily available, albeit temporary, solution to an internal problem. It offers a fleeting sense of peace, control, belonging, or exhilaration that was missing. Whether it's the rush of dopamine from gambling, the numbing calm of opioids, or the fleeting validation from social media likes, the brain learns to associate this external input with relief from internal pain. This isn't a moral failing, it's a neurological adaptation to emotional distress. The choice to use isn't a conscious, rational decision as much as it is a desperate, ingrained response to an underlying dis-ease. Understanding this shifts our perspective from judgment to compassion, from blame to curiosity, and reveals the profound human vulnerability that lies at the heart of all addictive patterns. The unseen impact, ripple effects, and consequences. The hidden dynamics of early pain and unmet needs don't just predispose individuals to addiction. They silently shape a cascade of unseen consequences that perpetuate the cycle. When the brain learns to associate an external agent with relief, it begins to rewire itself. This isn't a conscious decision, it's a profound neurological adaptation. The brain's reward system, particularly the dopamine pathways, becomes hijacked. What was once a natural system for promoting survival and well-being now becomes a ruthless master, constantly seeking the next hit, the next fleeting escape from internal discomfort. This neurological conditioning means that even when the conscious mind rebels against the addiction, the deeply ingrained pathways exert an almost irresistible pull, leading to intense cravings and compulsive behaviors that defy logic and self-interest. Beyond the neurological, addiction casts a long shadow over every aspect of an individual's life, often subtly at first. It erodes authentic connection, replacing genuine intimacy with the solitary ritual of the addiction itself. Relationships become strained, built on a foundation of secrecy, manipulation, and broken promises. Trust, a cornerstone of human connection, is systematically dismantled. The person struggles with self-worth, caught in a cycle of shame and guilt that further isolates them, reinforcing the very pain they sought to escape. This deepening isolation is a critical, often overlooked, consequence, as human beings are fundamentally wired for connection. When that connection is severed, the internal void only grows larger, making the addiction feel like the only reliable companion. Furthermore, the pervasive nature of addiction, from substance abuse to workaholism, creates a societal conditioning that normalizes this relentless pursuit of external gratification. We are subtly encouraged to seek quick fixes for our discomforts, whether it's through endless consumption, constant entertainment, or an incessant need for external validation. This societal backdrop, unknowingly or knowingly, feeds into the addictive patterns, making it even harder for individuals to recognize and break free from their own internal traps. The constant noise of modern life, the pressure to be happy and succeed, can mask the quiet desperation that drives many to seek solace in harmful behaviors. We become blind to the true cost, both personally and collectively, until the consequences become undeniable. The urgency of escaping this unseen trap lies in recognizing that until we address the root pain, the search for solace will continue, often leading us further down a path of self-destruction. The reframe, a new lens. If addiction truly stems from unaddressed pain and a profound disconnect, then the conventional battle against the substance or behavior itself becomes a futile war. The radical shift in perspective proposed by Gabor Maté and echoed by many pioneering thinkers in trauma-informed care is to stop asking, "Why the addiction?" and start asking, "Why the pain?" This reframe is not about excusing behavior, but understanding its origins. It moves us from a punitive, moralistic stance to one of profound compassion and curiosity. The addiction is no longer seen as the enemy. It's a desperate, albeit misguided messenger attempting to signal deep-seated distress. This new lens demands that we look beyond the superficial fix and address the underlying emotional wounds. It means shifting our focus from simply stopping the addictive behavior to cultivating genuine connection, self-compassion, and an authentic sense of self. Think of Viktor Frankl, who, amidst the unspeakable suffering of concentration camps, found meaning not in external circumstances, but in an internal stance. His resilience wasn't about avoiding pain, but about finding purpose despite it. Similarly, breaking free from addiction isn't about eradicating discomfort, but about developing healthier ways to process and integrate it. It's about learning to be present with oneself, even the uncomfortable parts, rather than perpetually escaping. History is replete with examples of individuals who, once they recognized the deeper roots of their suffering, transformed their lives. Recovery, in this light, isn't about abstinence as an end in itself, but as a byproduct of healing and growth. It's about reclaiming agency by understanding that the power to soothe and connect lies within, not in an external fix. This counterintuitive solution asks us to embrace vulnerability, to confront the very pain we've spent years trying to avoid. It's a call to profound self-discovery, to peeling back the layers of coping mechanisms to reveal the authentic, wounded, but ultimately resilient self beneath. This isn't just about overcoming addiction. It's about building a new way of being, one founded on self-acceptance, genuine connection, and an unwavering commitment to inner truth. It's a truly revolutionary act. The integration. Mastering the transformation. The ultimate truth in understanding addiction, as illuminated by Dr. Maté, is that addiction is not a disease of choice, but a disease of disconnection. It's a profound human response to early trauma, pain, and unmet needs, not a moral failing. The most powerful realization, then, is that the path to true freedom lies not in fighting the substance or behavior, but in re-establishing connection. Connection to oneself, to one's authentic feelings, and to others. This paradigm shift makes past struggles suddenly clear. Every failed attempt at willpower, every relapse, was not a sign of weakness, but a cry for the deeper healing that was overlooked. This insight offers a revolutionary framework for mastering transformation. It demands that we cultivate radical self-compassion, recognizing that our addictive patterns were once adaptive, a desperate attempt to survive emotional pain. We learn to meet our discomfort, not with escape, but with presence and kindness. This involves developing emotional literacy, learning to identify, feel, and process difficult emotions that were previously suppressed. It's a challenging, often uncomfortable journey, but it's precisely in this vulnerability that authentic strength is forged. The final step in this integration is the courageous act of rebuilding genuine connection. This means seeking out supportive communities, engaging in honest and vulnerable communication, and allowing ourselves to be seen, warts and all. It's about understanding that our deepest need is not for external stimulation, but for belonging, for love, and for acceptance, starting with self-acceptance. When we address the root pain, when we cultivate true connection, the external cravings diminish because the internal void begins to fill naturally. This isn't just about recovering from addiction. It's about reclaiming our inherent wholeness, transforming woundedness into wisdom, and stepping into a life defined not by escape, but by authentic presence and profound liberation. It's a journey that redefines what it means to be truly human.